So Epstein has connections to an Israeli prime minister and then later former prime minister. He has clients in the US and people he's been in contact with who have strong ties to Israel for various reasons, legitimate primarily. And put that together with the fact that people who are extortionists want connections to people who have information that isn't public. I mean, I'll tell you as a journalist, there's nobody in my 60-year career who has fed me more than an FBI special agent somewhere when they want to tell you something. It is astonishing what they know and are confident telling you when they want to. Of course, most of the time they don't want to talk to you. So connecting yourself to intelligence agencies will also give you some guidance. Hey, stay away from that person, because people with connections to the intelligence agencies or who are involved in them not only know where there's useful stuff, but they know what's troublesome and dangerous to avoid.
Hello and welcome to the Middle East Report, your one-stop shop for all the news and analysis coming out of the region. And I'm your host, Ali Raza Manji. The Epstein files are continuing to blow up politics across the globe in the UK and in America. In the UK, we've seen the man formerly known as Prince Andrew become Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, and Lord Mandelson, our former ambassador to Washington, has turned tail, and now his reputation, if not career, is in full and utter tatters. One question seems to always crop up. What link did Jeffrey Epstein have to the Middle East? And what do we know about his links to the region? Well, joining me to discuss that is David Cay Johnston. He's an investigative journalist, and he joins me now. Hello to you.
Good to be with you, Ali.
Well, first I wanted to ask you, can you lay out what we know about his links to the Middle East, Jeffrey Epstein's links to the region?
Well, there are various individuals in the Middle East he has relationships with centered on money, but do they extend beyond that to the judicially established findings that he was running a sex trafficking network with girls well below the age of consent, which in the U.S. is 18? They've released 3 million pages, so more and more things are going to come out. It turns out there are a number of videos that appear to be PDF document files, but if you know how to get around them, there's a video hidden inside them. And that's only half the files. So what we know is minimal compared to what we likely will know when we eventually, hopefully, get the whole 6 million pages. Of course, the administration says we're not releasing any more, despite the law Donald Trump signed that said all of it.
Yeah, so what we know in the last few hours, actually, there's a man called Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem, a close associate of Jeffrey Epstein over a decade. Now, this is a man who's actually left his job now at DP World, and Epstein once called him the closest of friends. There are others as well who we've known, the Sultan of Brunei, for example, again, someone who denies any accusations of wrongdoing. But we know he had a close interest in the region. I think that's fair to say.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the big unanswered questions that has been raised by many people, and people with serious knowledge of this, is did Jeffrey Epstein act in some way as an intelligence agent, or more likely an intelligence asset of Mossad? What exactly was he up to beyond what we know about, which was running essentially an extortion racket that made him very wealthy and trafficking in underage girls with the help of Ghislaine Maxwell, his procurer, who's currently serving a prison term?
Precisely, and Ghislaine Maxwell, interestingly, her father was once accused actually of having a relationship with Israel and being an agent. That's something that he's always denied. But this claim actually has come up a lot more lately because Tucker Carlson has fed into it as well. There was an FBI report released as part of the Epstein files in 2020 where an agent in Los Angeles suggested he thought Epstein had been a Mossad agent. But, you know, his law, for example, Epstein's one-time lawyer, Alan Dershowitz, said that, you know, no agency would really trust Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, that's something that somehow I find a bit easier to believe.
Well, I wouldn't give any credence to anything Tucker Carlson says, for starters. But in the case of the observation by Professor Dershowitz, intelligence agencies, and I'm someone who's actually exposed spies and foreign agents, intelligence agencies deal with anybody they think has useful information for them. They gather what's called raw intelligence, which they then analyze. So you could be a heroin addicted streetwalker, and if they think you have useful information, they're going to deal with you. So what Dershowitz, whose field is criminal law, not security, that's just ridiculous.
So we know one relationship was very concrete, and that was his relationship with Ehud Barak, the former Israeli prime minister. Their relationship goes back years, and in fact it goes back to the time when Ehud Barak was still in office. And there has been a call that was released as part of the files, and that call was Ehud Barak talking about what he's going to do when he leaves office. He was talking about what Tony Blair's been doing since leaving office, and we'll get to him in a minute. But Ehud Barak was saying, oh, look at how much Tony Blair's making in money and financial terms. And the suggestion was from Jeffrey Epstein on this phone call that he should go and work for Palantir. And that is, of course, the firm, the defense firm founded by one Peter Thiel.
Well, and Palantir and some other Thiel enterprises are essentially in the business of setting up a huge government surveillance of the people operation, an electronic signals intelligence network to know where you are, what you're doing, who you've been talking to, and then to use network connections to connect you to other people. And it's a real threat, in my view, to the concept of freedom and individual liberty. One of the things someone like Epstein does is surround himself with people he perceives to be powerful. An Israeli prime minister or former prime minister, Bill Clinton, Bill Gates. And the reason you do that is you want this aura of invincibility in case somebody like, say, a 13-year-old girl who was raped says, I'm going to go to the authorities. Well, who are you, sweetie? You're nobody. And by the way, don't miss my pictures here standing next to the President of the United States. That's a common extortionist con artist tactic. And we need to be very clear that just because your image and name are in the files we have so far, that is absolutely no indication you did anything wrong. Politicians pose with almost anybody. If they hand you their baby, they want to show off their ice cream cone that their shop. That doesn't tell you anything. It is the pictures that have not been released and the video that haven't been released. And we do have from some of the women who are now in their 30s and 40s saying, I know that there was a videotape made of me being raped. I know there were still images. I know that there were audio. How do you know that? Because they told me they were doing this stuff because I saw signs of it. And that's what's not being released. So we are far from knowing what was going on. But the fact that Epstein would try to insert himself into the life of an Israeli prime minister, it shouldn't surprise us. And afterwards, oh yeah, what better way to further create an aura of invincibility than to connect two people, former Israeli prime minister and Peter Thiel, who's creating this massive spy operation, electronic spying operation. What a perfect romance to put together and hope that you benefited from it, maybe financially, maybe in terms of protection and fear of people going up against you.
Yeah, it's worth saying that, of course, Ehud Barak says he regrets his association with Jeffrey Epstein, and of course, he denies any sort of level of wrongdoing, as does the US President Donald Trump, who's ferocious on the matter. One thing that I did notice, and it's been reported in the last few hours, but actually by Al Jazeera, who say that the 1993 Oslo Accords, which were negotiated in part by this Norwegian diplomat called Rod Larsen, Terje Rod Larsen, and he had a sort of a strange relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, which focused on illicit loans, visas which he would secure for Epstein. And it's interesting that that is now being one of the focuses of how he was involved in Middle East policy making, even if so it was seen as indirect. And there's a question of how much involvement did he actually have when it comes to that, influencing perhaps that Norwegian diplomat?
Well, it would be very important for Epstein because he was trafficking girls across national borders. And we know best about the dozen French girls who were 13 and 14 years old that were flown on a private jet to his island, were there for a day or two, and then flown back. You need to have the cooperation of various other authorities. You need to get visas, you need to get passports, or you need to get people who will look the other way at people crossing borders. So similarly, as Epstein is trying to acquire more wealth and expand his access to underage girls and build his network of people who want to do this, he's going to reach out to anybody who can be helpful to him. And many of them are going to have nothing to do with or be unaware of the sex trafficking business. So their reputations we need to pay attention to. By the way, it is significant, however, to pay attention to those people who've said, yeah, I regret that I saw him. I regret that I knew him. Those who have resigned from public life because of their associations, and those who go, I never knew the man, like Howard Lutnick did, or I only knew him because he was a next door neighbor and I never spoke to him again after a date certain, and then we find out they were lying. There's a lot of lying about that too, and the Epstein files, if we get all 6 million pages, are going to show more people were not honest and forthright in their public statements about the nature of their relationship or the timing of their relationship with Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, there's certainly a sense actually around the sense that the Epstein files in some ways are a ticking time bomb around a lot of people. And what I found really interesting actually while, looking into them was the element of which he was monitoring everything. I mean, I look specifically, I suppose, at the relationship he had with Peter Mandelson, Lord Mandelson, where over decades he was sending Peter Mandelson certain things he was interested in around British politics, monitoring stories that are coming out over here or globally, rather than Peter Mandelson the other way sometimes. I found that quite an interesting way he was keeping on top of what was going on basically globally with different people.
Yeah. Well, Mandelson, I think, is pretty clearly at this point has a reputation for lying and denying, for disclosing government policies and secrets, things that might become public but hadn't yet, to people who could make financial gain off of them. And I'll accept at face value Keir Starmer's claim that Mandelson, when he was vetted to be U.S. ambassador, lied to him. But really, I mean, without the lying to you, you thought this was someone who you could send there, and why? But from the perspective of Mandelson, connections to Epstein meant connections to other people with money, opportunities to make money, because he had a reputation for doing this from his insider knowledge in the government. And from Epstein's perspective, oh my goodness, here is a high-level British official. I can do some things for him. He's going to do things for me. This is a very much a scratch each other's back area, and it can include or can completely exclude the sex trafficking.
Yeah, and it's worth saying Lord Mandelson has said repeatedly that he does regret meeting Jeffrey Epstein and maintains his level of innocence in the matter. But I suppose when we turn this round and revert back to Mossad, where is the evidence, I suppose, to suggest in any way that he was linked there? Because this is a conspiracy theory going back in some ways decades.
Well, you can't undercount anti-Semitism in this issue. So Epstein has connections to an Israeli prime minister and then later former prime minister. He has clients in the U.S. and people he's been in contact with who have strong ties to Israel for various reasons, legitimate primarily. And put that together with the fact that people who are extortionists want connections to people who have information that isn't public. I mean, I'll tell you as a journalist, there's nobody in my 60-year career who has fed me more than an FBI special agent somewhere when they want to tell you something. It is astonishing what they know and are confident telling you when they want to. Of course, most of the time they don't want to talk to you. So connecting yourself to intelligence agencies will also give you some guidance. Hey, stay away from that person, because people with connections to the intelligence agencies who are involved in them not only know where there's useful stuff, but they know what's troublesome and dangerous to avoid. So on that level, I don't think any surprise there, but 98% of the public doesn't have a clue about how intelligence works. To know SIGINT, Signals Intelligence from human intelligence, is beyond most folks. They think it's James Bond nonsense.
So when it comes down, I suppose, following on from that, it is a way that, there are many ways, I suppose, you could be an intelligence asset without essentially having an official title as one. You could be someone who's filing in certain bits here and there. That's kind of your job, isn't it?
Well, and Ali, you can even be unwitting. One of the things about Donald Trump's relationship with the Russians, which goes back to the early 1980s, and they've been courting him quite openly since the old Soviet was still around in 1987, is he doesn't have to be a witting agent. If he is simply useful, and of course Donald shoots his mouth off and tells secrets he shouldn't tell and loves to say, oh, well, I know all about this or that, would make him absolutely, from the point of view of the Kremlin, an asset. Doesn't mean he even realizes he's an asset.
So, well, I
And
suppose
the same thing would be true of everybody else we've talked about.
No, absolutely. And I suppose this is one of those things where maybe the answers will never really come out, but the accusations will always fly. Thank you so much for joining us, Professor Cay Johnston.
Thank you.
Thanks.